Oh man, the inspiration. So I would say there's two things. One is all my life I've realized I have both a country and a city identity, and I've got friends in both areas, and I thought what a great opportunity to make both of those worlds collide. The second inspiration certainly was attending the 2013 Youth Ag Summit in Calgary. One of my three things I had to do for that was to be involved in my community and my food system. And so it's been 2 years since then, and so I really wanted to check that third thing off my list. And so that was the focusing moment to make this my third thing happen. I was really excited just seeing some of my friends from the 2013 summit, as well as seeing my other friends who had not been to my farm yet. I was excited to see them be inspired by the land like I am, and I was really happy to see them all come together as a community, as a potluck.
So basically the inspiration for this was James approached me a few months ago with the idea, and I had been thinking for a while about how agriculture right now for young people is a tough place to be, and there's a lot of negativity, and we face a lot of stories of how it's impossible to make a start, and it's really hard to make a go of it, and don't even bother. And so I saw this as a really good opportunity to bring a lot of people together who have really interesting and empowering stories to share.
I'm excited to be here because being part of the Youth Ag Summit, I had my three things and I accomplished a couple of those, and knowing that this was one of James, I thought this was a cool opportunity to come back together with people to have similar conversation and see how far we've come from 2 years ago when we were together.
I first became interested in the Youth Ag Summit going to university in Guelph. Coming from a farming background, a lot of the kids in my classes were from the city, so there were a lot of times that I was having to explain some really basic practices, and I really got to see the gap that there was in knowledge from people in the city. And the Youth Ag Summit presented itself as a way to network with people thinking the same way that I was, and I thought it was really exciting to not only see the North American perspective, but to see the world perspective, because there were people from 20 countries all over the world. So I was really excited to be there and to learn from them and understand their perspective and what their problems were compared to ours.
I feel out of all the conferences that I've been to, the Youth Ag Summit mission is probably the most direct and the most important to me, because there was continuity after the summit ended. There were people who were still devoted to the goal after the summit ended, and that was something that I'd never really experienced before. Because even I sit on a board through another nonprofit, and progress doesn't really happen. You just kind of sit there and you talk about it, but it doesn't happen. But here it seemed to happen, and people were so dedicated to change and dedicated to the idea of doing something with it. And proof that there's continuity is that we're here today as a follow-up 2 years later to come and discuss things again and see how our perspectives have changed since. So that was a new thing for me.
My three things were to join the PI Food Security Network, which is a local nonprofit that does public education and a bit of policy work on household food insecurity, as well as food and production issues, and as well as agriculture. And I felt motivated to join them. I felt also motivated to engage my peers who were not involved in agriculture about these things and the importance of these issues. And the third one was to farm.
So my three things, the first one was to do a speech at the Canadian Young Speakers for Agriculture Conference. I wanted to set 3 goals with different lengths of time that it would take to achieve. So that was the short-term one. The second one was to value food and to better understand where my food comes from. That one is my really long-term goal. That's a lifelong goal. And my third one was to become more involved in my community, in my food systems community, and that's what the potluck here was all about.
So for my 3 things, I wanted to visit a farm while I was in India. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. However, I did get to learn a little bit more about milk production specifically while I was there. I wanted to convince my family or get some buy-in from my family to try composting our manure. They ended up building a new dairy barn, and they're using composted manure as bedding. So collectively, that decision was made. But the most exciting one is the Women's Ag Network. So this was my third thing, was to have a social with women that are working in agriculture in the Guelph area. We did that, and it's since blossomed into the Ag Women's Network. So the Ag Women's Network has really started to take on a life of its own, and when I started, I thought that this was an idea, there's maybe some potential there, we'll see what happens with it. And there's so much energy and enthusiasm behind it. I really envision this network to be a vehicle to possibly connect with other women around the world in agriculture and try and look at not just the challenges that we have here in Canada, but also globally, and if we can find ways that maybe we can share resources or lend a hand. Obviously, I don't know what that looks like, but I think there is a possibility and potential in the future for there to be greater collaboration outside of Canada with the group that we've got going.
My original essay, we were asked to focus on our regional area and relate it to the world, and I took three that were pretty current issues at the time and still are, which were minimum wage, PEI, land restrictions, access to water. I focused on those and how they related to agriculture and how they were issues that needed to be addressed immediately in my area, and how these are also similar situations that other municipalities and other provinces or countries were facing as well.
I think the mission of the Youth Ag Summit is really important because for a really long time the gap between the farmer and the consumer got bigger and bigger, and no one really cared, and now people do. And the problem is that now that people do, that gap is so big that it's been filled with misconceptions and myths and things that just aren't true. So this mission is really important to bridge that gap and to correct those misconceptions, because there's a lot at stake here. We have to feed a lot of people, and we've got more people coming, so food and water are going to be really big issues for our generation, and I want to make sure that we get those somewhat sorted out before I consider bringing in the next generation, because I want to make sure that we leave it better than what we got it in, and I think that a lot of people should be worried about that too, because we need to change the way things are working right now.
I think the Youth Ag Summit's mission, or what it accomplishes, is it brings a lot of young people together who are energetic and empowered and very, very passionate about agriculture. I don't think we can measure the value of that and the spin-offs of that, as clearly we've seen today, 2 years later. We're still talking, we're still working together and empowering each other, inspiring each other.
I think youth have to be involved. This is their planet too, and what happens today is going to have ramifications for generations to come, and youth are the future, but they're coming up with dynamic and interesting solutions today, and they've got the drive and the motivation to put them into practice, and so I think youth have to be involved in this topic.
I always say that I'm the most country of my city friends and the most city of my country friends, and part of that has to do with my upbringing on a dairy farm that was involved in Holstein genetics, and through that business we had people all around the world come to our farm. So our farm is very local, obviously, but it was also a very global place. So there's that part of my identity. The other part is I have a Bachelor of Public Affairs and Policy Management in International Studies, and I'm very interested in how people around the world connect with each other and our globalized food system and how that works. So those are two main pillars of my background, and the people that I brought here today are characters that I've been able to see within each of those narratives, but I'd never seen them together. It's sort of like a Batman and Superman world coming together, and that was something that I have always wanted to do but had never had the chance to. So that's what today really was about. The Perspectives Potluck that I had today isn't an event that I'm going to do every year, but it's something that I hope to live every day. I've received a lot of good feedback from people as far as both producers and non-producers about having a moment to come together and have conversations and discussions. So I feel though, I may not do the same event ever again on the farm. I feel like there'll be many parts in my life that will have that same sort of idea of being a connector, of being a host, of being a wealth of knowledge, and also being a good audience member. And so future plans, I would love to do something where people have an opportunity to come onto my farm. Obviously it would be structured, but I think that is something that I would like to do in the future.
I really liked the guest speaker that James had, but it was really interesting for me to come here and see this family that's in its period of transition. And it was interesting to hear Craig's dad speak, I think, and talk about how he was old news. And that's one of the very first time I've heard someone from the older generation saying, look, you need to take the reins now. Because usually people like that are not very self-aware. They're not very self-aware that their time is coming to an end and that it's, time to hand over the reins. And here was this man who was willfully doing it and was doing it gleefully. And, he's helping the succession, he's helping educate young people. And the sense of cooperation, like that was very interesting. And same with the speaker. He was very interested in mentorship, I guess is what I'm looking for, the word I'm looking for.
Mostly today was really exciting because it was a chance to actually reconnect with some of the folks from the 2013 summit who I've kept in contact with via Facebook primarily, was our main mode of communication, but a chance to actually see them again in real life was really exciting for me. But then also knowing that James and I we basically reached out to our networks of friends and colleagues in the world of food and really tried to invite a really wide array of people. And so I was really excited to kind of get everyone's input and contributions to this day and learn from all kinds of really interesting people in food and ag.
You know what? I looked around, I started the day in all smiles and I ended the day in all smiles. What came from today was worlds colliding, friendships made, perspectives discovered. At its core, I think at the end, I'm just so excited that it was a moment for producers, food producers, and non-food producers to find common ground between each other so that we can build a more sustainable food system. I just want to say thank you very much to Bayer and to 4-H for hosting the 2013 Youth Ag Summit, and thanks to all the people who are involved in hosting the 2015 Summit as well. You helped me make my 3 things happen, and impacts that we made today was possible because of your support. So thank you very much.